This is a test of Butler's Lightboard studio, and I'm really happy to be able to be here and show some photos from trips I've taken to the region of Transylvania, hopefully promoting student interest and maybe even wider interest in visiting the region. So I've spent a lot of time in Romania. I've lived right here. This is actually my first time writing on the Lightboard and seeing that it's really hard. And seeing what you can do with that. And then my wife is from Sibiu, right here in the center of the country. And I've actually visited all over the region. Do those things stay there for the rest of my talk? They will. Okay, so I have just done something that I probably shouldn't have.
That's all right.
But I'm learning about how you annotate maps.
Exactly.
And you can always clean and then come back and do other stuff if you need to. But it's best to do one talk all the way through.
Ideally.
Okay.
So for that example, you could have maybe arrows or PowerPoint animation to highlight.
Yeah. So as you'll be able to see over here, right, Romania is in Eastern Europe, and because of its region, right, and Transylvania is the western part of it here, because of where it's located, it's intersected with the Roman Empire, right, the Byzantine Empire that followed after that, the Ottoman Empire based in Turkey, the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It's been part of the Eastern Bloc of communist countries, and now it's part of the European Union. And so it's a fascinating region which has had close ties with Rome at one point, with France intellectually, with Turkey, with Budapest and Vienna. And for that reason, if you visit that part of the world, you see a wide array of architecture, encounter a wide array of languages, of culture, than you might in a typical European country. And so that's why I think it's particularly worth visiting. So I'm going to be very interested to see what happens to my little squiggles as I move through pictures. They're going to be a bit of a nuisance there. But our first stop is a place called Brașov. In Romania, they seem to like these Hollywood signs up on mountains to tell you where you are. And those things are going to be really annoying. And so I might even see whether we can clean them, and then I can avoid making that mistake again.
Sure. Do you want to stop and start over, or do you want to keep going?
Let's keep going.
Okay.
If you don't mind demonstrating the cleaning process.
All right, so the
and
first...
I will enjoy the vinegary smell that is going to follow. Is that correct?
That is correct. So the first is doing a dry wipe.
This is assuming you don't mind being in my video.
I don't.
Okay.
Hello. And then it's a matter of a light spritz of vinegar Windex.
So I would have said, thank you anyway to Heather Hazelwood, our Center for Academic Technology, for giving me the training in this.
Sure.
But now you get to make an appearance, which is pretty good. And so what we have here is Brașov, and I will probably just point to places rather than draw on them because it will flip through. I might try writing in this area, which I've tried to leave mostly clear. But Brașov is one of the first cities that you get to if you're traveling from Bucharest into Transylvania. And you can see there one of the dominant features is the Black Church. And it's a Lutheran church. And one of the things that you learn as you look at church architecture in cities around Romania is that the churches actually tell you something about which culture dominated sort of politically and religiously and had more control over the city, or was responsible for founding it, or was predominant in terms of leadership in the city. But it's very often not the group that was in the numeric majority. Right? And so there's the Black Church there, as you visited in the square there, which on summer days is much more densely inhabited. You'll definitely see some pictures in this of my family. And one of the things I wanted to see is what happens if you put something in the middle, and what happens is it blocks out part of your arm. But on the other hand, if I planned to do this and wanted to talk about, let's say, a map or something like that, it might not even be that bad. I could even insert myself as a ghost-like figure into a picture, which I might or might not want to do. So one of the things that you can see in Brasov is Stratosphori, which is the narrowest street in Europe. So there's a family photo from there, and there's another one with my wife and son there. My wife and son are in these pictures, as am I in some of them, and so you get to see him grow, because they're photos from different times in his life. And there you can see the city from above. Bran Castle, and I might not go much further because I'm going to bore Heather as she sits here as I pretend to be giving a talk, but Bran Castle is fairly well known. It seems to have been the place that Bram Stoker, who had never been to Transylvania, and borrowed the name of the region and a variety of other things out of books that he read, but he seems to borrow the description of this castle as the inspiration for Dracula's castle. And as you can see, it's one of a kind of fortress-like castle locations, right? There are some palaces that were used by the Romanian royal family more recently. This one is much more of an older fortress style. And you can see architecturally how it differs from some of the ones that have more of a German influence. And so it's located up on rock, and it does have that menacing kind of feel. Vlad Tzepes is the individual who's known as Vlad the Impaler, and is thought to be the individual that Bram Stoker borrowed Dracula's name from. And he himself has very little connection with this fortress. So Dracula is sort of twice removed from the place that's marketed as Dracula's castle. Here you can see a bit of the interior. There are a number of places around Romania where you'll see different kinds of castles, different kinds of fortresses. And you'll see there's still some rural lifestyle that you'll encounter as well. So Corvin Castle is one place that I'm hoping to go with students in the not-too-distant future. And again, it looks like something out of a fairy tale. It's one of the few places on the itinerary that I put together that I've never been. But you can see why I think it's worth visiting. And it has those kind of halls that you associate with medieval castles and things like that. Has a torture chamber, as one wants. At least some castle that you visit, right, needs to have one of those. The big sweeping halls, the tall windows. And from a lot of places, you can get beautiful vistas from above of cities and villages, of the Carpathian Mountains, of churches. And this, I think, will end here with my wife's hometown, which is Sibiu, which is known as Hermannstadt in German. And there you can definitely see the influence of classic Germanic architecture, particularly in the Lutheran cathedral, which is a major facet that you see when you visit. So I will maybe flip through a few more pictures just to see what that looks like when you go quiet, whether it looks really silly. You can get gelato as you walk down the cobbled streets. You do see Romanian Orthodox churches as well. Sometimes they are central, and sometimes they are down a side street, depending on which people group was sort of politically in control historically in a particular place. And there are buildings with just beautiful architecture on them that in any other part of the world I think would be developed as tourist attractions. But in Romania, they've had less tourism development, which means that the lines are shorter. And so there are lots of good reasons to make Romania one of the places that you visit. You can see beautiful things. You can see, learn about music. Right? You can learn about culture. You can learn about food. You can learn about languages. And in visiting these places, you get to encounter a range of different cultures, societies, ways of life, different languages. Certainly some food that I'm guessing most Americans have never ever tried in their lives. Some of which is sweet, all of which is delicious. And learn about a range of peoples and cultures from around Europe and indeed around the world by visiting just one region. And so I hope that in the near future I'll have the privilege of taking some students on a beautiful journey to a part of the world that I've grown to love, visiting it regularly. Thank you for listening. And thank you for putting up with my trial of the Lightboard today.